Hey folks, Mark here. I want to talk to you today about cops and the duty to protect. Now, in case you hadn't heard this, in the self-defense world, especially the shooters, a very, very common claim is that police do not have the duty to protect. Now, I'll tell you a story about, well, many different things. There was a thing called Castle Rock and Gonzales that went up to the Supreme Court. Well, I was 3 blocks away from where the shooting happened, and it woke me up. So I'm laying in bed, and I hear pop, 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 pop. And my wife sits up in bed, and she goes, backfire. And I'm still kind of asleep, and it's like, no, gunshots, 9mm, about 3 blocks away. And I tried to go back to sleep, right? Hey, I didn't hear pop, thwack, which is the sound that a bullet makes when it hits your house. That you need to pay attention to. So I'm thinking back to sleep, and my wife goes, what? And right at that moment, there came a and I was like, okay, it's over now. All right. And I tried to go back to sleep. The wife was like, what? What? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going back to sleep. So, long and short about this story is you had a divorced couple. Mom had a restraining order on him. There were all these things about, handling the children. She wasn't living up to the nature of the restraining order. And that's not uncommon when it comes to, wives getting, restraining orders. It's like, well, yeah, but if I got a restraining order on him, who's going to come over and mow my lawn for me? It happens. Well, the thing about it is there were supposed to be supervised transactions to hand off the kids. Well, he showed up, took the kids, and then later he called and said, I have them at Elitch Gardens. Now, I'm going to skip ahead. She called the cops and said, hey, he's got the kids. He's supposed to be back. He hasn't shown. Cops weren't real worried. Well, she called him again, yada, yada, yada. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, I don't remember exactly when, he pulled up in front of the Castle Rock Police Department, got out of his trucks, opened fire into the police department, or into the police station, and eventually the cops returned fire, and he went down in a hail of bullets. Well, those are the sound effects we heard. What we didn't hear, or didn't hear about until the next day, or further on, is the children were dead in the back of the truck already. Now, this went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the issue is that she was suing the Castle Rock Police Department for not saving her children. Okay. Now, the reason I kind of hesitated about that, and I said we'll go into this later, is first of all, you have the city of Castle Rock, or the township of Castle Rock. You have Greater Douglas County. Then you have a couple other counties in between here in Denver, which is its own county as well, by the way, as well as the city. And Elitch Gardens was up in Denver. So, the issue of the police did not do enough to save her children is the basis for the lawsuit, and it went up to the Supreme Court. And there it was dismissed because, in legal terms, a duty is an obligation, financial or action-wise, that if you fail to do it, if you fail to meet it, okay, you can be held liable for it. So the argument that the police don't have a duty to protect you is not exactly right. It's not exactly wrong, but it's not exactly right, because most people think in terms of duty, like, well, you're obligated to do this. In actuality, the legal term duty actually has more application to duties and tariffs and fine in that, but it also has that other meaning. Well, the reason the police were not found to have a duty to protect a specific individual is because the police also have a duty to the greater public. So they cannot drop their obligations to the public to go after this one person and protect that one person. Now, there's an exception, and generally that has to do with holders of public office, where it is deemed that the position warrants police protection. But generally speaking, the police have, if they cannot make a, oh God, this is where it gets a little complicated. Yes, they have a duty to make a good faith effort as far as they can. That's an important thing. What you'll find with the people who will sue the police when somebody is killed at the hands of somebody else other than the police is, oh, they didn't do enough, right? And that's where they're getting the basis of, well, you didn't protect, this person. And all the cases that actually that found that the duty, police have no duty to protect an individual beyond good faith efforts. Okay, this is a very important legal concept. Basically, the Castle Rock cops, and the reason I told you the story is, what are they supposed to do? Number one, they have a jurisdiction that is their authority, and the guy apparently was not in Castle Rock. We don't know where he was, but we don't think he was in Castle Rock. He might have been somewhere in Douglas County, but what information they had was actually 3 counties up, and I am pointing north here. So were the Castle Rock cops, first of all, supposed to drop everything else that they were doing, call in everybody off duty, do a house-to-house search, kicking in doors to find this child? I mean, what is reasonable to find 2 children? Especially the fact that they're with their fathers. Now, that typically is safe. So, yeah, a lot of kidnapping goes on. It's a huge mess, but overall, children are typically safe with family members. This was an exception. So, and it was on the basis of that exception that the police didn't, drop everything and start tearing the town apart, much less the county, much less state, counties to the north. Just how far were they supposed to do, and at what expense to other duties that they have? Now, the thing is, the police officers have no duty to protect is really misunderstood in the self-defense world, and they use it as a justification of you have to do it yourself, which technically I don't disagree with. You are responsible for your own personal safety. But selling it as the cops have no duty to protect you tends to lead it down a very bad road, especially because I'm the one who have to do it, and therefore all I got to do is shoot them. And it's like, no. It's the first step in a very bad road of misunderstanding. So, yes, understand that police do have a duty, and if they fail to act, or they act negligently, right, and that is balanced out by a lot of other things, then yes, they can be sued. But things like demanding that they sacrifice themselves to run in and save an individual, that you cannot reasonably do. See, so this whole subject gets way more complicated than you think. See, officers, yes, they do have a duty to act, but how much of that duty is also, like, say, in an active shooter situation, to secure the area so the shooter doesn't leave? Okay? Sucks to be people inside the area, right? But until the cops can do it safely, they're not going to enter that area. So it really does. You really need to think twice before you listen to somebody talking about the police having no duty to protect. There's all kinds of obligations. It's way more complicated than people want to make it out to be, but also, just because you accept that the police do not have to sacrifice themselves to save you, doesn't mean you get carte blanche.